I have a very direct, blunt, and businesslike relationship with Putin. I think the situation in Ukraine caught him by surprise.
That was President Obama asked about Vladimir Putin moments ago at the Business Roundtable here in Washington. He went on to tell the CEOs that Putin has a backward approach, which is scaring his neighbors and very badly impacting his economy by isolating Russia internationally. We know that the ruble has collapsed. The currency is a mess. Joining me now is Mark Landler, White House correspondent for the New York Times and former diplomatic correspondent. Mark, you follow this so closely. You know that Russia's economy is in terrible shape. But the conventional wisdom seems to be that this will only make Putin more retro, more aggressive, because he's defensive and he doesn't want to show any sign of compromising with the West.
Yeah, that's right, Andrea. And the other thing that President Obama went on to say in that Q&A was that he doesn't see any likely change in President Putin's actions until the politics in Russia catch up to the economics. And by that he meant, you know, this is very popular for Putin domestically. He gets consistently very high poll ratings. And so as long as that continues, he can probably weather the economic storm. The question that I think the president was raising was, would the economics with plummeting oil prices and other things get so bad that he would begin to see an erosion in his political support domestically? And if he does, then perhaps we could see somewhat of a less aggressive posture toward his neighbors.
Now, facing off with Ukraine and Russia and all of these problems, to say nothing of two wars, the threats from ISIS in Iraq and Syria, and trouble elsewhere in the Middle East and in Asia. Now, the lead story that you wrote today in the New York Times is a new defense secretary coming in, pending nomination of Ashton Carter, highly regarded. How is he equipped to take this on? We're expecting this nomination any day now.
Well, Ashton Carter's colleagues, and there are many of them around the defense industry, say that he sort of brings this combination of a deep immersion in policy. He was involved in a lot of the planning around Iraq and Afghanistan, the military campaigns, as well as a very sort of granular understanding of how the Pentagon works as a bureaucracy. He was a chief weapons buyer for the Pentagon. He was, you know, intimately involved in the production and deployment of these mine-resistant personnel vehicles that were sent to both Iraq and Afghanistan. So he's a nuts and bolts guy and a policy guy. The one thing he doesn't have is a career as a uniformed military officer. And some people have suggested that that's an issue for him. Others say, though, he's worked at the Pentagon in a number of senior jobs for so many years. He has deep ties to the combatant commanders. And so he should be able to bring, you know, both this budget and bureaucratic expertise as well as a strategic sense to what's going to be a very difficult period for the new defense secretary.
And most importantly, perhaps, with an incoming John McCain to chair the Armed Services Committee and handle this confirmation process. So far, he seems to have positive statements from those Republican senators who've been questioned about his possible nomination.
That's right. I mean, one of the ironies of this situation is that the president named a Republican senator, Chuck Hagel, as defense secretary, and he ran into a buzzsaw on Capitol Hill during his confirmation hearing. Now he's naming a policy wonk who has served for two Democratic administrations. Ash Carter also served under the Clinton administration, and yet Republican senators, not just John McCain, but Senator Inhofe, have expressed pretty unstinting support for him, and the suggestion is he's going to sail through the confirmation process.
Mark Landler, thank you so much on all fronts today.